Chapter 12. After the meal, Brandon opened a bottle of champagne delivered later with 2 wine flutes. He poured me a glass and then him one. "Are you going to talk to me, Tyler? Or are you going to ignore me, like you did during dinner? Do you think that a lobster dinner and a bottle of wine will ease the pain I'm feeling?" I said, staring into his eyes. He tried to divert his glance, and realizing that he had some explaining, he raised his eyes to meet my gaze. "Nothing that I could say will make our pain go away," he added. I was incensed by his reply. What did he mean, our pain? What are you referring to by our pain? What pain have you endured? I have been humiliated, and felt as if I didn't mean anything to you, and when I saw you, you didn't acknowledge that you knew me. This afternoon can be explained. I sat with my hands crossed waiting for something. I would have settled for a lie or any lame excuse that he had tucked away. He took a hard breath as if he was stalling for time. And sure enough, as the time gods would have it, they smiled on Brandon. Hearing a key in the door, we turned to see Chris and her boyfriend Patrick walk in hand, laughing. "Oh, I didn't realize you were staying over with company." "No problem. We can go back to Patrick's apartment." "But Chris, your loft has all this wonderful light. I'm starting on a new canvas tomorrow." "I need to be here," Patrick said, kissing Chris's cheek, and Chris acting like a schoolgirl, grinning and nudging him. Patrick's apartment was one step from being a hovel. I wouldn't stay there if I had another place to go. Brandon stood, and Chris introduced him to Patrick. Chris whispered, and pulled me out on the terrace and left Patrick and Brandon to get acquainted. "I'm sorry, Tyler. I didn't know you were going to be here and with Brandon," she said to me. "I know, but it's a long story. I'm going to take the next train home," I said. "It's late, we can make arrangements," Chris said. "Where did you find Brandon?" "I haven't seen him since." I interrupted, "Since his wedding." "I know. We better go inside, and I'll take a cab to Penn Station." We walked inside and Chris turned to Brandon. "I've tried talking to Tyler and she's insisting on taking a cab to the train station. If you can't convince her to stay here, at least drop her to the station." "I don't want." "You have no wants, let's go, princess," Brandon said to me. Before I could say a word, Brandon had me by the arm and out the door. "But I forgot my purse and bag." I ran back and rang the bell, but Chris didn't answer. "They're on the terrace." "You can't hear a thing out there," I said, giving out a long sigh. "What am I going to do?" "You're going with me," Brandon said. That was a rhetorical question, Brandon. "I'm not going anywhere with you." He picked me up in his arms and I made a fist and punched his shoulders. "Put me down. I hate you. You're going to tell me you love me, otherwise I will carry you to my car and take you home with me." "I'll never tell you I love you." He threw me over his shoulders like I was a side of beef, with me screaming, and Brandon laughing. An elderly man entered the elevator and Brandon said, "We're eloping." The old man smiled and said, "That must be a new way of doing things. Everything old is new again. It's a much better way." And Brandon shook his head in agreement. "I wish I was a young man again," he said with a sigh. I remained silent because I didn't want to get Brandon in trouble. He didn't need the cops and newspapers involved, and I didn't need to give my dad any more to worry about. I remained quiet until we were outside. "Are you going to put me down?" I said, glowering at him. Spencer finally exited the car. "Are you all right?" he said half-heartedly. "What do you care, you traitor?" I said, emphasizing each word. "Tyler, get in the car." "We can talk inside," Brandon said in a commanding voice. I shot a killer glance at Spencer. My eyes narrowed and my brow furrowed. My expression said, "Watch your back." But nonetheless, I did as I was told. Spencer started the limo and drove around for 10 minutes with no words passing between us. I looked at Brandon in a huff. "Where are you taking me?" "It's too late for you to be walking around Penn Station." "You haven't answered my question," I stated. He turned his body to me and said, "To my apartment." "I'm not going." "And how many do you have?" "In Manhattan, or throughout the U.S., or are you interested in seeing my apartment in Paris? I can make arrangements to have us flown there tonight." "In Manhattan," I said, out of breath from the anger building inside of me at his every word. Each time he spoke of an apartment, my mind thought of the women he must have slept with and where. I only got a chance to see the one in Manhattan, and his family home in Maine. I hate him. I love him, I thought. "What do you want with me?" "I want you," he said with darkened eyes that frightened me. "Well, you can't have me. That day is long gone." I tried to sound convincing. He moved his hand and placed it on mine. Then he brought it to his mouth and placed a soft kiss on it. "Give me another chance," he said, kneeling in front of me. "I think you forgot one little thing." "You're married," I said with coldness dripping with every word emphasizing married. "You said you would be with me no matter what. You knew I was engaged and due to marry that Saturday when you stayed with me. Now you're blaming me for falling prey to your lies?" I queried. "I'm saying I fell in love with you. I couldn't help myself. You're the first woman I wanted to wake up with in the morning and see your face. I wanted to take care of you, take away your problems. You were innocent and you didn't know the world. I wanted to show it to you and give you an experience that you would never forget. Well, you did give me an experience I will never forget. I never thought I would sleep with a married man. I never wanted that for myself, and my parents never wanted that for me. So when tomorrow comes, I'm saying goodbye to you." "You don't mean that," he said, moving closer to me and reaching for my hand. I clasped my hands together. "We shall see." The car stopped in front of the hotel. "Here's my key. Stay in the apartment. I won't bother you. I have another one in the city." "Is that the apartment you share with your wife, or is it with the girl I saw you with earlier?" "What do you care?" He said, his face sad. "Spencer, see Tyler up to the penthouse. I'll remain in the car." I exited the limo expecting him to follow, but he didn't. I knew my words were harsh, but I saw no other way. My change of clothes and purse remained in Chris's loft. I looked at Spencer and then I turned back and ran to the limo. "I have no clothes and underwear." "I can't wear the same clothes," I said to Brandon. I didn't want anything from him, but I needed help and I wasn't too proud to ask. "Can you send Spencer to get my suitcase from Christina?" "I'll see to your needs." This was all Brandon said, and he returned to his conversation on his smartphone. Speaking to Spencer was the last thing I wanted to do. He kept chatting into the air, as if he thought I had forgotten him. He placed the key into the lock and I said, "Traitor." And I shut the door in his face. I paced around his bed wondering whether I would have to call Chris if Brandon didn't come through with the things I needed. I planned to get up early and take a cab and bang on her door. There's no way I would stay another night at his place. I pulled my dress over my head and kicked my shoes off, then sitting on his bed swinging my legs, I glanced around Brandon's apartment. Beautiful couldn't describe it. I wondered who had furnished it. Not a wife. It screamed bachelor pad. A large sturdy king bed, no frills. A leather headboard. Heavy dressers. I wandered into the restroom, looked in the cabinet. No women things. Only rows of toothbrushes and shaving stuff. I wondered if his wife knew he had this pad stashed away. Did she care? I know I would. It must be wonderful to have money and be a young man, I thought, as I slipped into the shower. Turning on the shower, my thoughts endlessly on Brandon. I wished he were mine. I wished for so many things. I wished I didn't stay in the shower as long as I did. Wrapping a towel around me, I fell across the bed on top of the satin covers and closed my eyes. Chapter 13. The sun rose behind the tall buildings, casting a light into my eyes, blinding me for a second. I refused to open my eyes. I craved a strong cup of coffee to face the day. It was Sunday morning, and I rolled on my left and right side. Then I stretched my arms over my head. I exhaled. It felt great. The smell of the room different from my bedroom in New Jersey. The air filled with the smell of roses with a flavor of coffee. Ah, there's the scent I hoped for. My eyes still closed and my brain shut off. For a moment I didn't realize that I was sleeping in another bed. It should have occurred to me that I wouldn't smell coffee if I hadn't fixed it. I placed my hand on the sheets, feeling around, and then I knew I wasn't in my bed, and I wasn't lying lazily on the futon in Chris's loft, where the sounds of car horns and fire engines forced me out of a peaceful sleep. A sudden breeze passed over the room, and I felt a coolness, and it was then I opened my eyes. Across from the bed sat a dark blue wingback chair with a pattern of blue birds and flowers. In that comfortable chair sat a young woman about 30 more or less. She sat peering down at me with her dark brown eyes. Her auburn hair with natural highlights were the products of an exclusive salon that specialized in making unnatural colors appear natural. Wearing a beautiful cream pantsuit, probably of silk and wool, it appeared so expensive that she could sleep and eat and drop coffee on it, and the coffee would roll off, and nothing could affect its beauty and texture. At the time, I wasn't into designers, and I had no need for them because I couldn't afford their ridiculous prices. She made a science of crossing her legs. Her legs were aligned in a perfect vertical slant, no doubt from some finishing school where she spent her summers learning the manners of a well-bred girl. However, her smile reminded me of King Joffrey, the mad young king on the television movie, The Game of Thrones. When she saw that I acknowledged her presence with my eyes wide and expressing surprise, she said, "This is indeed a first." Her expression remained the same. "I've never known Brandon to have a woman in his bed and not catch him lying there beside him," she said with her thin nose pointed upward and her posture perfect. My mouth fell open, and I felt I had to say something. "I'm just a friend," I managed to squeeze that sentence out without my voice shaking. If I had said more, she would have gained some leverage over me because she hadn't revealed herself. "Sure you are," she said with a turned-up smile, leaning forward with her fist to her chin. She didn't act like a wife, so I thought that she was one of his girlfriends checking on him. If I had been his wife, I probably would have pounced on me and pulled every strand of hair from my head. But that was me, and I was crazy about Brandon. After all, it was 8 o'clock in the morning, and she appeared to be calm. That's why I couldn't imagine that she would be his wife. I thought that a wife would be hysterical if she had found a woman in her husband's bed. I straightened up and gained my composure. "Who are you?" I inquired, wondering whether I would appear in the Sunday Post's headlines. "Girlfriend of the notorious bad boy, Brandon Charles, caught naked in his hotel bed." But if the newspapers wanted to get down and dirty, the headlines could read, "Tyler Burns, the girlfriend of bad boy womanizer Brandon Charles, naked and bound by her wrists in his bed." My job prospects would be trashed, and I could never meet my father's gaze without tears flowing like an open faucet from the shame. "I'm his wife." "And who are you?" she said, forcing a smile. "I don't believe you." "No wife would be as calm as you," I said, pulling up the towel that had disappeared under the covers sometime during the night. I'm calm because it excites me to catch a woman in Brandon's bed. I know he's never serious about them, and besides, I can blackmail him into giving me whatever I want to keep her name out of the papers. She tilted her head in a satisfactory manner, and a large smile broke, showing perfect white teeth. This was a game. Looking at her wide mouth, I thought, shark. I didn't want to play the sick game that this rich bitch had devised to keep their sex life interesting. I told you that I was only a friend, and as you can well see, Brandon is not with me. Her eyes darkened and her brow furrowed. I can see that, but it will not prevent me from getting what I want from him. As you slept so soundly, I took pictures of you lying there. All I have to do is Photoshop Brandon's picture in the nude, and there you have it. He's lying in the bed next to you. Now if I were you, I would get out of here. She stood and picked up her expensive red alligator bag, slung it over her shoulder, and marched to the door. Before she could reach for the handle, the door opened, and Brandon stood in surprise with a sweet bag, and behind him a man dressed in a gray and gold hotel uniform carrying boxes of women's shoes and a suitcase. Brandon's eyes small slits, his mouth turned downward. What do you want, Angela? He passed in front of her, and laid the items on the sofa, and directed the man to place the rest in the closet. Brandon gave him a tip, and he rushed from the room. Angela walked in his direction and passed her hand across his face. Why, I came for my husband, she said with a forced smile. This is not the time, Brandon said, brushing Angela's hand away. She opened one shoebox, examined the shoe, and said, Are these for me? She met Brandon's eyes. If so, they're the wrong size. And she dropped the shoe on the floor. Then what time is a good time to discuss this latest betrayal with my husband? Do I have to make an appointment? She said, looking at me with contempt. Her hands clenched tightly. I listened, and decided that I couldn't take any more. This was a marriage made in hell, and I didn't want to be in the middle of it. If you give me a minute to get dressed, I'll be out of your way, I said to Angela. This is not my business. Oh, but it is, she said, standing at the foot of the bed. I find a little cunt in my bed. Brandon interrupted, Don't call Tyler that word, and this has never been your bed. I wrapped the towel around me tightly and stepped out. Brandon's eyes followed me in a hungry, sex-starved gaze. Angela's eyes followed his eyes. So this is the one you like? I thought it was the others. I was just wasting my time coming between you and them. Where did you hide her for 5 years? I closed the door and tried to listen. Brandon cursed and said, I haven't been hiding her anywhere. She's just another girl I picked up. I felt shitty. I didn't want to hear that I was just another fuck for him. Turning on the shower and stepping in, I stayed under the warmth of the water until it became quiet. Then I slipped on my black dress and my damp panties I left hanging on the shower door. Not hearing voices, I walked slowly out of the bathroom to the bedroom to retrieve my dignity. I caught sight of Brandon strutting from the kitchen with 2 cups of coffee. Here, princess, you need this. And I need a drink. He walked to the bar and poured himself a shot of bourbon, and then another and another. I stared at him. His drinking 5 years ago was bad, but now it was worse. What's wrong with you and your wife? I asked him. He opened his mouth to say something, and I cut him off. No. On second thought, I don't want to know. I'm getting out of your crazy life. I'm crazy because of you, he said, finishing off the bourbon and pouring another. He came closer to me, and his body touched mine. I could feel his manhood rise, and I pulled away. Don't put that on me, I said, trying to put distance between us. I wanted him and needed him too bad. I needed the heat of his embrace, and for him to tell me that he loved me. I asked you to wait for me and you left, he said. You said you were coming back, I shouted. I remained in that place until after your marriage, until after you fucked Angela that night, and then I came to my senses and took my stupid ass home. I left Angela on our honeymoon night and rushed to be with you. I told her the night of our honeymoon that it was a mistake and we should get an annulment. I know this sounds terrible, but you don't know the circumstances under which we both agreed to this marriage. No, I don't, and I don't think it concerns me anymore. That is your burden to bear. Telling me makes me more ashamed of myself if that's possible, I said, trying not to accept responsibility for something that I had a party to as well. Brandon held my face in his hands. You have nothing to be ashamed of, princess. I could do nothing but ease out a small smile with tears following. He kissed each tear, traveling straight to my mouth. There is nothing you can say, I said. I needed him to say something to change my mind. Make me believe him. My marriage wasn't a marriage. It was an arrangement between two young spoiled rich kids plotting to get their inheritance, thinking that wealth would solve all our problems. I don't want to go into details, but if you ask me, I will tell you everything. Everything? I questioned. His face changed. His glance wandered. I knew he was holding on to the biggest secret of all. I wondered what his mother meant when she caught us in bed and asked Brandon if he told me. I don't think I'm ready for this. I have to get my mind ready for my first day on the job. I need time, I admitted. I headed for the door and he stopped me. Give me a moment to explain to you what happened that Saturday night. I glanced at his arm holding mine. I'm waiting for your explanation, I said, hoping to believe and forgive him. When I discovered that you had gone home and didn't want to talk to me, I was crazy. Angela found me with my mother's direction and insistence. I laid out drunk on the floor for days. I hadn't eaten or taken a bath. I was a mess. She became angry and jealous, then she encouraged me to drink some more. I stayed drunk for months. We weren't going to consummate the marriage. He paused long and then he said, but in my drunken haze we slept together. We had a contract and she wouldn't let me out of it. I'm not proud of this. I didn't think my life would get this complicated, and I didn't think I would meet a girl and fall in love with her. I never knew I could love anyone the way I love you, and still be in love. I held my breath when he said that they were not supposed to consummate the marriage. I exhaled when he said they did. I couldn't breathe when he said that he loved me. He put his arms around me and I became limp. Not because I was so attracted to him, which I was, but because at that moment I hated him. I hated him because I loved him so much, and to hear that he slept with Angela. I fell hard into the softness of Brandon's arms. I could have stayed in my fairy tale world until someone woke me. Everything in the room was circling, and my feet were unsteady. Sit down, Brandon said, and before I could open my mouth, he picked me up in his strong arms and placed me on the bed. I know what's wrong, you haven't eaten. Let me call for breakfast. No. I protested. I have something to do today. I know you have a job, Brandon said, sitting down on the edge of the bed. You don't have to work. I'll take care of you. I will get you an apartment. Wait a minute. You're proposing that I become your mistress? No. That's not what I want, he said. What do you want? I don't know, but I do know that I want you with me under any circumstances. I will get a divorce from Angela, but it takes time. When I try to leave her, she tells my family that she's pregnant. Well, is she? If she is, it's not for me. I haven't slept with her in 5 years. Oh God, I can't handle this. This is not the kind of life I wished for myself. Sneaking around to be with someone I love. You said that you love me, and that you would be with me even if I married, he said. That was 5 years ago. I'm a woman now. Of course I love you, is there any doubt? But I'm not going to spend my life dodging Angela. She will never give you any peace or a divorce, I shouted. I stepped from the bed. My words must have rang true, and he recognized the truth. I can't stop you from going on with your life, and I won't prevent you from having a life. I'm the one to blame. I admit, I can't see a future for us as long as Angela is in the picture, Brandon said. His eyes lowered and turned to a dark hue of blue. He stared through me as if he was somewhere far away. I won't bother you again, he said to me. He had given up without a fight. I wanted him to say that he would never give in to Angela, and that we would be together one day. He stood watching me walk through the door. I was in a daze, and when I arrived in the lobby, Brandon's limo was parked in front of his hotel. I stood in line waiting for a cab. My mind was cloudy, and it was raining. I saw and heard only the raindrops. Tyler. Tyler. I'll take you home. Spencer's hand sat on my shoulder. Come with me. I followed him like a sheep, not knowing or caring about anything. Brandon had let me slip out of his hands once again. I wanted to be in his arms, but what was I to do? He had made me a proposition that I couldn't agree to. Unlike Angela, sophistication, deceit, and blackmail didn't appeal to me. I had no training on how to be a mistress. I would probably fuck that up. I had no training on how to act when dodging the wife. I had no training on how to sleep with a man and not give my complete heart to him. Without saying a word to Spencer of where I was going, he stopped in front of Chris's loft. Anything I can do, Spencer said, reaching for my hand, helping me out of the limo. Thank you. You have done enough, I said, regretting the acid mixed in with my words. It wasn't Spencer's fault. It was my fault, and it was Brandon's. We've managed to fuck up our own young lives, and we had years to go. Who knows how much damage we can do to each other? I wondered.